As human beings, we like to bifurcate our world. Black, white, good, evil, left, right, boxers, briefs. In our fourth story on the countdown, the perils of oversimplifying the world and oversimplifying politics. Make no mistake about it, the latest polling shows that a majority of voters define the economy as their primary political concern. Not exactly a shocker, even if you don't follow the downward spiraling Dow. Wages stagnant, prices up, gas prices way up, foreclosures, a middle class disintegrating into a gilded age nation of the very rich and the poor. No surprise that 53% of Americans rate the economy as their premier concern. What is surprising is that the Iraq War, while next in line, resonates as most important with only 16% of voters. But the war and the economy are not two separate issues. To date, Iraq has cost the U.S. an estimated $750 billion in direct spending, never mind the other economic and, yes, the human casualties. The budget surplus with which Bush started his presidency has now become a massive deficit. All of the spending for the war in Iraq has been deficit spending. Christopher Hayes, Washington editor of The Nation, joins us now. Chris, thanks for your time this evening.
Thanks a lot, Rachel.
Chris, I knew I wanted to talk to you tonight about this. When I heard Bush say in his press conference today, I'm not an economist, but I do believe we're growing. I know Bush is a lame duck, but is he making matters worse for John McCain by just showing his face to the country and trying to talk about the economy?
Yes, is the short answer. I mean, traditionally, and I think what has held true for probably the last few decades is that people tend to trust Republicans more on national security and Democrats more on economic issues. Now, the national security edge has been eroded by the disaster in Iraq, and now is much closer to even. But the edge in the economy remains, and so I think if the McCain campaign had their druthers, every single day would be dominated by discussions about Al Qaeda, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Even though McCain supported the failed policies in Iraq, they still want to talk about that because on the economy, they really don't have a whole heck of a lot to say.
Even given that broad context, on which I think you're right, Barack Obama gave his major address on Iraq today. He keeps going back and back and back again to the national security well. He obviously thinks he's got a strong hand to play on the issue of the war and national security generally. But going back to those poll numbers today, should Obama be more vocal, more literal about connecting the issues of the war and the economy?
Yeah, I think he should be. I mean, the actual economics of this are a bit murky, and in terms of connecting exactly what's happening in the economy to the war in Iraq, in some places there clearly is a connection. In other places, like what's happening in, say, the subprime financial markets, it's harder to sort of connect the dots. I do think that the two are related insofar as we are spending a tremendous amount of money on the war. And the figure that gets thrown around, $700 billion, is a really difficult figure to get your head around. Joseph Stiglitz, a Nobel Prize-winning economist, ran an analysis, and he says by the end of this war, God knows when that's going to happen, we might be ended up at 1.5 trillion, 1.2 trillion, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's a tremendous amount of money. And I think if you talk about what you could do with that money, that's a way of sort of connecting the two that might kind of resonate more strongly.
Obama certainly talking about the opportunity cost in terms of security with having gone to Iraq, the opportunity cost of not chasing al-Qaeda, of taking our eye off the ball with al-Qaeda. Certainly the economic side of that is what we could have spent those hundreds of billions of dollars in Iraq on. John McCain today articulated, and I think for the first time, recently at least, his strategy on Afghanistan. He said his plan for Afghanistan is to copy the awesome plan we had for Iraq. He also said last week that his deficit reduction plan is to win Iraq and Afghanistan in his first term, never mind the whole 100 years thing. How do you think that John McCain is doing, connecting the issues of the war and the economy?
Well, I just want to say that the thing that they put out in there when they were talking about how they're going to balance the budget, in which they put this massive amount of money that was going to come from, quote, winning the war, was, I think, one of the most comical moments of the whole campaign. I mean, this is like saying, sometime around my second term, they're going to find a cure for cancer, right? And we're going to save a lot of money in healthcare when that happens.
Also, I'll find a big pot of gold somewhere in the White House.
No, that's exactly what it was. I mean, more or less, the notion that somehow there's going to be some peace dividend that he's going to reap when they win. Look, he's saying we're going to be there for decades. So that's going to cost a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to station troops, even if we don't have 150,000, which we're not going to be able to have because we can't sustain it. We're going to have some massive presence under McCain's plan, and that's going to be very, very expensive. So, he's connected it fictitiously, but the fact of the matter is his central plank on the economy, which is quote-unquote fiscal discipline, is in direct contradiction with his central plank on national security, which is lots of wars in lots of different places.
There's going to be more wars, my friends. There's going to be more wars. Chris, the big picture here, biggest possible picture here, I guess. 10 years ago, oil was $11 a barrel. And Osama bin Laden said in an interview that he wanted the price of oil to be more like $144 a barrel, roughly where we are today. Barack Obama said today that the oil economy is a tyranny. Is Obama making any more progress than other Democrats have in the past at making how much oil we use into a national security issue? Democrats have tried to do this for a while. Is Obama being any more successful at it?
You know, I think he is, and I think the needle is moving, but I actually think it's sort of dangerous territory when you talk about the concept of energy independence. Because energy independence can mean different things. And one of the things that conservatives try to do is say, oh, yes, energy independence, good idea. We can't be dependent on foreign oil, so let's drill all over the place. And let's drill in the Arctic, and let's drill offshore, and let's dig out all the oil we can. The point is that there are two components to our energy problem, and you cannot separate the two. One is a national security issue, and the other is a massive, massive, unprecedentedly large crisis in the climate. And so you need to connect those two when you're thinking about solutions. And so I'm a little frustrated sometimes with the discourse that emerges around energy independence because it is so readily hijacked to support policies that are going to be the worst possible policies for the climate change crisis that we face.
Chris Hayes, Washington editor of The Nation, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Rachel.